Welcome to The Turnaround Artists, a podcast about turning things around when they don't go our way. Tune in each week to hear stories of impressive personal and professional turnarounds from a variety of interesting guests. This podcast was inspired by the recent happy turnarounds of its producers, Marisa Mitchell and me, Brian McFarland. We look forward to speaking with you. All right. In this episode, I have the pleasure of having a conversation with my new and growing close friend, SerotoninChaser. Welcome.
Hello. Thank you.
And I would encourage you very strongly to go find her channel on Grippy Sock Radio, which is a radio station that is all about indie music, mental health, and music therapy. And there's a roundtable that drops on Saturdays that I'm hoping to be a part of someday. So, with that being said, we're going to hear from our wonderful guest and let you tell us your story. Thanks so much for coming on.
Brian, thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure. As a listener of your podcast, I'm fangirling right now a little bit. It's just really cool to finally see you, thank you for your work, for what you've done for me in the last week or so that I've been listening to your podcast, because I've picked up a lot of new mental fitness terminology and I feel all the better for it. My name is SerotoninChaser. You can call me Sero for short, Sero. And the name is a long story, but I'll give you the short end of it. I'm 36 years old. I'll be 37 this year. A lot of my life was full of trauma. There is not a day that I can remember that didn't have some type of negativity attached to it. And my entire life, I've only made one birthday wish. I've never made any birthday wish other than to find inner peace. I have been chasing my life's serotonin for so long that I don't know if it exists. At least not for me. But I do know that I bring in my existence happiness to other people. So I chase serotonin and bring music therapy to my fan base, because at the very least, that brings me happiness.
So here's my question and my thought. So you give, and it seems like you don't seem to get or to give yourself. So talk to me about that, because that, quite honestly, makes me sad.
The way that I was raised was more of in an environment where I did not see a lot of positivity. I did not see a lot of giving. Where I grew up in East Harlem of New York, in the Black and brown neighborhoods, we don't do a lot of giving. We do a lot of trying to keep for ourselves because resources are scarce. And growing up seeing that, I knew I wanted to be the good drop of water. I wanted to give. I didn't want to see my people suffer. I didn't want to see anybody suffer. Why I don't take for myself is something that I'm actively working on in psychotherapy.
So you're in the midst or the early stages of a turnaround?
I would say that I'm in the midst of my second turnaround.
Okay. So talk to me. Let's take it back. When was the first turnaround, and now how are you on the second one? Because I'm really curious.
The very first turnaround, we'll speed up a bit. I was in my 20s. I was married pretty early to a person who, hindsight is 2020. I probably should not have been married to. And it was a very abusive situation in many ways. Not to say I was a stranger to it, because I had hopped from abusive relationship to abusive relationship since I was a teenager. My first instinct of love was, unfortunately, being sexually assaulted by my uncle at 7. So I never knew what good, positive love was until I met my current husband. At the end of that marriage, I walked out with my original child, a brand new child, and a full on diagnosis of mental illnesses that I had no idea about. From PTSD to BPD to just everything that you could possibly think of. We're even struggling with the idea of if my bipolar is more or less a dissociative identity disorder at some point. My turnaround began when I started therapy. When I realized that I am a human being and I do deserve the space that I take up naturally, and that I will earn the space that I take up with my hard work. It's just a matter of making sure that I made peace with myself and peace with my environment, going back to that birthday wish, always wishing for inner peace. At the end of the marriage, it was very rocky. It was very scary. It was very rocky. My girls and I were homeless for about a year and a half here in the big city. And we bounced from like my grandmother's house to a friend's house to finally my childhood home where we're filming in now. Mm-hmm. Along the way, I learned a lot about myself. I learned that I was resilient because I had to be for my children. I learned that I was creative because I needed an outlet to get away from the drama. I learned that I could be that human being that I wanted to be when I was younger, and be that that goth queen baddie that brings happiness to people despite what I've been through. I took my entire life from sexual assault to abuse to homelessness to drug abuse. I took all that with me when I went to the psych ward. I was put there against my will by my ex-husband and his family. And I stood there for a few weeks and had to learn about something called radical acceptance. When I learned that, and radical acceptance for listeners is the absolute non-judgmental acceptance that bad things will happen within and without of your control. I have an issue letting go of things that I cannot control. I have an issue where I can't say no. I just had a lot of issues. Psychotherapy helped me, and that was the beginning of the turnaround.
How long were you in that psych ward, that first visit?
The very first visit was about 3 weeks. And funny enough, it wasn't because they released me because I was better. I was released because I faked my way out. I wasn't ready to go. I should not have been let go. But I was able, in my creativity, to see what they wanted from me. I like, not that I like to, but I have always been forced to blend in to make things work for me without being an individual. So it was easy for me to blend into what they wanted so that I could get what I needed, or at least what I thought I needed at that time.
Which was to get out.
But then to what? The same problems without the tools that I needed that I could have learned in the ward to get through. The only thing I walked out of that ward with was a notebook. That notebook held not only every exercise that I worked on for the 2-3 weeks that I was there, but the base plan for Grippy Sock. How I could make an enterprise that not only healed me, but healed everyone else like me. Because if I was going through this and I knew people were going through worse and I wanted to die, no, my cup was big enough at that moment that I said the world needs me. and I'm going to heal just enough that I can do this. And then I'm going to heal the world alongside myself.
Wow. Well, you have. You've touched many. I know in one conversation with you and by a few listens, I have learned so much. There was a moment that you mentioned in one of your episodes that you talked about a gentleman on the psych ward, and he was listening to headphones. Was that during your first day that you caught that?
Yes.
It was. It was.
He was terrifying. He was a big, burly Hispanic man, very just stone cold face. His eyes just never seemed to move beyond center. And wherever his head was what he was looking at. He never shifted his eyes. He always moved to what it was. And he would yell and he would scream, and he had his issues just like we all did while we were there. And we tried to be as non-judgmental as possible, but on a co-ed psych ward, there's only so many precautions that you can take mentally, to want to prepare for anything to happen with a male patient, that's having an episode. So I watched him closely in just my feminine security, But then I noticed there was a hidden closet next to the recess area that they would unlock once a week. And I came a few days after that closet was unlocked, so I didn't know about it for a while. And one day he showed up with a pair of headphones, and I asked, where did he get those from? Because they took everything from me. Where did you get headphones? And they said that he actually gets catered music. On his headphones, we were allowed a few stations, and if you wanted to use the headphones, you could, but we were only allowed a few stations that wouldn't supply music that would exude too many negative thoughts. We had the popular hits, of course, but we weren't listening to things like gangster rap, This man, as soon as he had the headphones on, he went from the Hulk back to Bruce Banner. And it was remarkable. That was my first interaction with music therapy. Now, I've been in music since I was 5, but I had never heard of music therapy until that moment when he put the headphones on and he got quiet, and then he just started rapping. And he would pace the halls back and forth, and it was the most peaceful time that we would ever have. Whenever he did not have music in his life, he was not mentally fit to be alone. He always had a guide with him. But I did notice that with the headphones and the music, he was always alone. They left him alone. And I thought, wait a minute. Music did that? Like, I could turn on Kendrick Lamar or something and just vibe out and feel better? I didn't know I could do that. And the entire time I'm like, wait a minute. I write this stuff. So wait a minute, I can listen to my stuff and feel better. I can channel my feelings into this music and make someone else feel less lonely. Hold up. Wait a minute. I think this is my first turnaround.
Okay, now how old are you at this time?
I was in my mid-20s.
Okay, you're in your mid-20s. So I think an obvious question of curiosity here is you start music at 5, you're playing and writing, and you're an artist. So you did not make the connection, even with all the trauma that was going on, that you went and played the piano or wrote a song and that made you feel good, right? So you were not making that connection, but yet it was helping you.
Yes. I never made the connection. And the craziest thing about it is my dad in the early 90s, maybe even into the late 90s, in the early 2000s, was a pretty pseudo-famous DJ out here in New York City. Music was my life. It wasn't like I went a day without music, and it wasn't like I went a day without hearing a song that may have made me feel good. But what we don't do, and that goes back to what I said before about my neighborhood, especially neighborhoods with Black and brown people, we don't have what we need to be mentally fit, like the resources, the doctors, the therapists, the education, the skills, the word of mouth. So while I'm growing up listening to music, I don't know what therapy is. All I know is that I have problems and I got to pull my bootstraps up. Music is work. Music was my dad's job in addition to other things. When you see famous people on the stage, that's their job. It's a career. And I never thought that you could take enjoyment out of that. I never thought you can find healing in something like that. And it amazed me.
Wow. So now this helps you embark on your first turnaround, right? Okay. So walk me through, you get home from the psych ward, you go back to the same not nice person.
We divorced.
What happened then? Okay. That must have taken a lot of strength.
It did. And it was a situation where we got into a fight. It got physical. I said no. He left to work. I grabbed the kids. And we were homeless for a year and a half. I went down to my mom's house down south to go stay a few months with her and just kept bouncing from house to house to house until I was able to come back here. But that was that spark of that turnaround where he and other people had did so many things to me that I ended up in the ward. Why did I end up in the bad place when they were the bad people? And when I came out, I went home, we divorced, I found home, and I found that notebook after unpacking, after years, after almost 2 years of not being able to have my stuff locked in storage for eons. I found that psych ward notebook. Grippy Sock was originally called Fifth Floor Radio because not only do I live on the fifth floor of my childhood apartment, the psychiatric treatment center I was at was on the fifth floor of the hospital. And Fifth Floor Radio was supposed to be a radio station that played nothing but independent music 24/7 that would inspire people to feel better, to heal, to connect. And I kept that notebook. From 2019 to 2024, I worked on that project by myself. From just that notebook. From 2023 to 2025, I built the team. And now we are the radio station, the podcast, and the healing center I wanted us to be. This is my second turnaround. Now's the time where, like I said before, I wanted to heal myself up just enough so that I felt I could do something worthwhile, and I did it. Now my cup is big enough, my cup is full enough, it's time to pour. Because there are so many other people like me that have lived lives that I have lived, and I want to cry right now just thinking about it. Healing never sounded so good. That's our tagline.
You have some of your own music on your station?
We do, yes, we do play my songs. Everybody asks me. I actually have the least amount of songs on the radio out of respect for all the other artists. I just feel because I own it, I should not be having my stuff plastered everywhere. But if you are interested in my music, you can find me on all platforms as SerotoninChaser.
Okay. And that very much goes with your persona, where it's just give, but you don't want the center spotlight. And none of this was about money, right? It was just about helping people. And
in fact,
we all know it's impossible to make money in indie music or podcasting,
In fact, when I divorced my husband, I got a very large sum for the settlement. And I will say only $5,000 or $6,000 of that was actually kept personal, and the rest of it was invested into this project. I really believe that this is my way of helping. This is my way of proving that I deserve to exist to myself, you know? And then in the same aspect, knowing that I can do something for myself and other people at the same time, I can start a whole fountain of people pouring from their cups, you know? If my cup is big enough and I pour and somebody else feels good enough because my platform did it and they start pouring and then they start pouring and then they start pouring, we're all the good drop of water then. And that's what I want to be.
Yeah. Well, you already are, right? You need to give yourself more credit.
I try that, and that's what we're working on. We're working
Yeah.
on.
Well, so that's what I want to dive into that a little bit, because I'm a mess, but I'm a mess that's turning things around, right? That's why we started the Turnaround Artists, and I want to give back to you. Of course I do. And you're just doing so much positive, especially for a world that's so near dear and to my heart, of musicians and artists that are often a group, hey, everybody's got problems. But it seems, right, safe to say that musicians and artists, we skew to music because we're struggling, right? I have an old boss who said, what are you going to be doing in 1 year, 3 years, 5 years, and 10 years? You should always do that. Separate from business and the radio station, whatnot. Let's just talk about you.
Yeah.
What's the, you're so strategic. What's the plan for you? Because none of this, the other stuff exists unless you're healthy, both physically
Yes.
and mentally. So
Yes.
how can you and how can we as listeners give something to you?
To be really honest, this is the first time I've ever actually answered this question. I've been asked, what can I do for you? What can I do? No, 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 no. But now what I have to answer, I have to answer it. The only thing that I would say is, please listen to my music and to the music of the people that I promote, because there is a reason why we wrote it. And if it's going to be a selfish wish, listen to the lyrics and understand that, yes, there is a place and time for what I call booty shaking music. um, but indie artists, we have a soul that you're not going to find in mainstream. And if you can just listen to my music and help me find my soul, that'd be great.
So let me get tactically on you here. So after this and tonight and this weekend, I'm going to go listen to your music and I'm going to get a better understanding of you. How's that going to help you?
It'll give me the drive to create. As of now, all of my songs that are out, and even the ones that aren't out yet, they were all written because of something that happened in my life. My music is not just a musical catalog, these are my memoirs. If something were to ever happen to me, to whatever legacy I'm trying to build, those songs are literally my biography. So it'll help me feel less alone if I know that someone else out there listens to a song and thinks, wow, that person really did turn it around. Or, wow, that person sounds like me. And then just leave me a comment. Make me feel less alone in what I'm writing. And that's really all it is. If I have to be selfish for it, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, I want you to be.
You
And
see, I'm struggling with it.
I know, but I love the fact that, you're presenting your vulnerability
Yeah.
after not being set up for success,
Yeah.
right? And you came out on the right end, and sounds like you found a good partner to be
Yes.
with, which is
Yes.
wonderful. He's been obviously a positive influence on you through all this. Talk to
Yeah.
me about how you guys met and what's your relationship like, because it brings joy. You're smiling, you're laughing. My job is not to make people cry; it's to make them be happy.
I love this story. So, Stanley and I have been friends since I was 19. He was actually my trainer at my very first job at a tea bar. And I was in college learning pastry school stuff, and I needed an internship. I found a job at a tea bar in Union Square way in the early 2000s. And there was just this big hulking bearded guy in the back with long hair who was so adorable. and and apparently he took a shine to me instantly too, because as soon as I left the interview, he went to the boss and asked personally if he could train me. Once he started training me, we were best friends ever since. We fell in love with each other over the time of the course of our friendship, but we were young and we were both in separate relationships. And being loyal at the time to the people we were with, we decided to just remain friends. So we lost touch over some time, typical, she got away situation. And 15 years later, through a mutual friend who never posts on Facebook beyond once or twice a year, posted on Facebook. And he and I both caught it at the same time. And he saw my name and he thought, oh my God, this is my chance. After 15 years, I can finally tell her how I feel. Because the night that he wanted to, I walked away. 15 years later, we're together. We have a beautiful blended family of my 2 daughters and his son. We are the happiest we could ever be. And he is the greatest support system I've ever had. He reminds me when to take my medication. He's gentle with me when I have my anxiety attacks. When I'm working and my ADHD is flaring up, or my bipolar is going nuts, or I'm having flashbacks, PTSD flashbacks in the middle of the night, and I'm shaking and I'm crying, he's there. I've never known love until I've known this man. And he is the whole reason why I was able to get Grippy Sock where it is. Because there is no way, shape, or form that you can ever go to the gym in your mind and not have a spotter. And if I am going to have some type of mental fitness, I need a spotter. He is my spotter. And he has been doing that this entire time. And without that support system, I wouldn't have found the strength in myself to build this platform that I have now. I wouldn't have found the ability to go to therapy. I wouldn't have found the ability to find you, Brian. I wouldn't have started any of this without him saying, Sero, you can do this. I don't know what you're talking about, but you can do this. Look what everything you've done in your life. Yeah, things have gone bad and you may have tripped, but you tell me one time you've ever failed. Absolutely hard failed. And I can't.
That makes me so happy because you got what you deserve. And as we both know, there's the phrase, right, behind, make it politically correct, right? Behind every great person, there's a partner. And my experience is getting into any of the anonymous programs, the foundational need to have another human that's in your corner, that's your spotter. Oh my God, that analogy just, as a former bodybuilder, you don't lift 315 pounds on the bench press and you're a formidable person, unless you have somebody standing there, because there's stories about people who do that and, the weights then go down on them and they unfortunately pass away. So, but where I like to take this, if you can bring home one thing, what would that be?
2 things. The world sucks, but you don't have to. And to remember, and there's someone who used to tell me this all the time, a really dear friend of mine, you are a person. Just remember that. remember you are a person before anything else, before you are a job, wherever you are at your career, or whatever you are in your hobby, whatever you are to your kids, whatever you are to your family, before you are any of that, you are a person. And I'm not a religious person, but I am spiritual. I believe that we were all made of the stardust. I believe that the atoms in the ether that created us chose to create each individual person. So you exist because trillions of tiny little things in space all had the same idea. You. You are the greatest idea that space ever made for those tiny little atoms. Just remember that.
I love that. I love that. So, Sarah, tell our listeners, please, where they can find you, and then we'll close up shop here.
Of course. Well, let me turn on the Grippy Sock Radio charm for a second, a minute. Yo, welcome to Grippy Sock Radio. My name is SerotoninChaser. You can find us on all platforms, literally Spotify. You can find us at grippysockradio.com. That'll launch up in a few days. We are moving our radio host from one radio host to another. So our radio station is going to be coming back in the next month. And you can find us on TikTok, you can find us on Instagram, and you can additionally find us on Facebook. We are very, very, very much everywhere. We are run by millennials, so we act like millennials.
For sure. And where specifically would they find your songs on all those platforms?
My songs, Serotonin Chaser, you can find on your favorite listening platform.
Fantastic. Okay. Well, you've got a new fan. I'll say again, if you ever need a drummer or a very average bass player, I can help you. So the turnaround artists, like we said, it's turning things around when life doesn't go our way. This was certainly a great example of that. And we thank you so much for giving your time. It's the most valuable resource that anyone could give. And we truly appreciate allowing us to come into your world. Thank you for listening to The Turnaround Artists. We hope you got some helpful insights into how to make a tough situation better. If you have a turnaround story you'd like to share with us, send an email to hello@theturnaroundartist.org. Tune in next week and be sure to follow and like us on your favorite podcast platform. In the meantime, keep turning things around.